The evolution of video game drum and bass mix. When jungle D&B music dominated video games, a brief retrospective. 90s aughts ambient jungle and gaming mix. PlayStation jungle mix. Low poly breaks mix. Nintendo 64 jungle mix. The ultimate Dreamcast gaming jungle mix. All these videos popping up on my YouTube page for the last year or so have really rekindled my love for jungle and drum and bass, which incidentally, way back in 2006, was the first electronic genre I ever tried to produce. I was 16 at the time, and I remember being completely puzzled and frustrated and banging my head on the computer keyboard trying to replicate whatever the Square Pusher was doing. Well, luckily in the 17 years since, goddamn, it feels really bad even saying it out loud. But yeah, music software has come a long way, and I like to think that I've become a little bit better. I mean, I still suck, but you know, I'm just a little bit better. So whether you are an old head like me trying to get back in the game, or maybe you are one of those young bucks producer who just found out about, you know, drum and bass, strap in, because we're gonna go for a deep dive today. We're gonna make a Nintendo 64 jungle drum and bass track from scratch, and we're gonna be looking at samples, we're gonna be looking at breaks, we're gonna look at techniques, we're gonna look at sounds, we're gonna look at music theory, we're gonna look at the synths that you need, the plugins, blah blah blah, all of that, the whole nine. And on a quick note, I did try my best to find the most amount of free software in order to produce this particular genre, because there are actually quite a few free plugins that you can download and just use. But I did use some, you know, premium paid software because, you know, I like good stuff as well. So there's going to be a nice mixture of like free plugins and premium ones, but you know, you can definitely build a whole track using just free plugins. You're just going to have a bit more limited sonic palette, if that makes sense. Luckily though, some of these iconic sounds from the 90s actually have been, you know, recollected and repackaged, sometimes, you know, free sample packs or free VSTs. Anyway, today's going to be a long one, so let's get into it right away. Alright, so we opened a session in Ableton, and let's start with the basics. Let's go into BPMs and let's type in 162. Pretty much all drum and bass and jungle is between 140 and 180 BPM, and to me 160 and 162 sounds pretty good, middle of the road kind of BPM. So let's set that. After you establish the tempo, it's pretty much a matter of personal preference what you start with. Many people actually like to start with processing some drum breaks, but I personally like starting with some chords, or maybe a melody, or maybe a riff or something like that. And that's great because that gives me a nice segue into actually showing you my personal favorite synths for this type of music. So let's start with my number one absolute gem of a synth, which is the inimitable Korg M1. Now, the Korg M1 used to be an actual hardware synth. I think it was released for the first time in 1988, and you know, it quickly became a staple because of its versatility and all of that. And Korg actually released a software version of this beautiful synthesizer, which is basically, it's classified as a rompler, which it means that basically it operates on ROM-based memory, so like cards basically. What that means in terms of actual sound and synthesis is that it combines, you know, traditional like analog type waveforms and some actual sampling. So it's capable of very complex sound and atmospheres, and that's why it's so widely regarded in this genre. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself as usual. This is usually around 99.99. I think it is right now 99.99. So it's not a free software. You have to buy it. I actually got it for $49.99, which was a steal because it's worth every penny. And as we go into the browser, you easily find out what I'm talking about. I've actually loaded a simple -7 chord right here, and yeah, let's have a little listen. I mean, come on, the first sound and it's already great. I mean, you get the point. And also, besides from the great, expansive, lush pads that you can get out of this, there's also quite a few very iconic pianos and bass. I mean, how can I mention the M1 without actually mentioning this sound? Classic piano house. And also on this very patch, if I go down a couple of octaves, you have, I can't even play it, but it's this one. I'm not gonna play it all because it's gonna be copyright stricken, so you know, you get the gist. Anyway, so as I said, this is a paid software, but there's plenty of really great alternatives, and one in particular is actually from this guy called Neil Schneider, who actually went through copying his entire Kawaii synthesizer, which is also a Rompler, into free to use AU and VST, and the sounds are pretty accurate. Let's have a listen. And this is just great, crunchy 90s Rompler. Straight up, it's just great. Listen to this. That was bad. Nice. And also, both on this and the Korg M1, the developers went through the pain of actually importing all of the expansion ROM cards, which, you know, Romplers get their name from. So if I go here, I've got a whole bunch of new sounds, which is great. So pretty much any of these sounds, I mean, there you go. Pretty much any of these sounds will transport you back into the 90s, 2000s, and you know, that era basically. Besides from these two, there's actually a couple more that I usually use, which are a bit different. One is, you know, obviously Absynth 5. I think this has been discontinued now, but this is one of the, you know, absolute staples of Native Instruments. It's not technically a Rompler because obviously it's always been a soft synth, but it basically takes the same kind of concepts and ideas behind the Romplers. So if we go into, you know, patching, you have normal kind of waveforms, then you have possibility to go into sample and granular stuff. So it's very powerful, and it also has lots of really good pads and something like this. I mean, it does sound great, but in my opinion, this is a bit more modern than the Romplers, whereas this is really good for just, you know, liquid drum and bass or just general jungle and drum and bass. If you want to achieve that kind of cheap, synthetic, old school Nintendo 64 vibes, I think Romplers are the way to go. And fortunately, again, I use the M1 because I love it and it's so expansive and great, but you can definitely use, you know, Neil's Kawaii K1 replica, and it's going to be great. So these are pretty much the three synths that I use the most when making this kind of music. I know it doesn't sound like a big, you know, great collection of synths, but they're pretty much all you need. And we're going to see that for the basses as well. They got great bass sounds. Anyway, if we don't want to be stuck with just one chord, we might want to think about music theory for jungle, Nintendo 64 jungle. And one thing that I need to say up front is that I'm not the greatest keyboardist in the world. Actually, I'm terrible at it. But one thing I know about this genre is that it's very jazzy. And so when we think jazzy, we think extended chords, right? So a lot of 7th chords, 9th chords, 11th, 13s, and all that stuff. And there's a couple of ways of going about it. The first one is the manual route, which is yeah, incredibly frustrating, especially for somebody who's not very good. But you can definitely, go in here, and as I just did for this clip that I deleted right now, but you can go and count, and C major is C, E, and G, and then put a seventh, and you go from there. And then, I don't know, that the ninth is gonna be a D, and then maybe you do some inversions and stuff. Oh, sorry about that. You do some inversions, and you can do that. And of course, the more you progress into music production, the more you should be able to be very quick at, building chords. But when it comes down to chord progressions, that's a whole different ball game. You need to know the relationships between chords and stuff, and I do know a little, but sometimes I get stuck. In that case, I use a couple of tools to help me with all of this. So the first kind of free method of actually making chords without not knowing how to play them is actually an effect, a MIDI effect included in Ableton, which is called chord. And basically what this does is that it allows you to duplicate notes and shift them up or down a few semitones, and that allows you to make chords. Now if I'm just playing a C, I shift this 5 semitones, I got a major interval. Let's just use one of the presets. Let's look at that. Major 7 chord. There you go. Now I'm playing a C sharp. D sharp. And they all automatically transform into major 7 chords. Cool. So this is the first method. Another one, actually, for this one you need Max for Live, which is included with the Suite version of Ableton. Otherwise, I think it's paid, or you have to pay the whole bundle. But anyway, there is one great effect called chord generator, Nordman chord generator, and this is great. I've used it quite a few times. You can choose between minor and major. You can omit the third. You can choose seventh, major seventh. You can add 9. Also, you can do multiple extensions, 13s, sharp 5, flat 5, and all that. And then you can actually spread it a little bit. And also you can randomize all of these parameters. So for example, if I just play a C right now, and it's very dissonant, so I'm gonna just and you can already tell that's very 90s inspired, house, garage, two-step, drum and bass, jungle, and all that jazz. Anyway, so this is the second method, and finally you've got the boss of all bosses, which is a paid Max for Live instrument, which is quite expensive. It's 50 euros or 50 pounds. I don't remember. It was like $50, let's say. And this is for the big boys. And I am a big boy. I mean, I am a dumb boy who can't play the piano, but I have a full-time job because I'm an adult. Thank God. And I can afford to dish out $50 for this if I choose so. And it's called the Korg M1, and I love this. This is so, I mean, look at that. It's already quite professional looking. I mean, you've got so many different chords, different extensions and stuff, and all of these little squares right here are actually a chord that you can pre-program, and that's the beauty of this, and that's why I actually paid for it. I mean, that and the fact that you have a arpeggiator built in, you can transpose, you can do inversions, you can make them a bit closer together, you can up the top third, you can make it open, you can comp it, you can stack it. It's absolutely great. And then let me just give you a little quick look around. So let's just say that I've got you know, this right here. And then on this, I've got, say, a D. I mean, need I say more? I mean, that's a tune already. That's fantastic. Actually, let's start from here. Cool, so now that I've explained all the ways that I actually find inspiration for chord progressions in Ableton for this particular genre, let me just load something that I already prepared, and it's this particular chord progression in Korg M1. Let me just see what other sounds I can use. I mean, if this doesn't scream Nintendo 64, I don't know what does. So let me just go ahead and record this. Yep. Of course, the metronome crapped out on me, so well, I wasn't too bad. There you go. Just adjust this, and beautiful. I'm turning up the send to the reverb and the delay. One thing that I'm gonna do right now, which is gonna look really weird, but I promise you it's something that you need to do to get that typical Nintendo 64 sound, is that you have to go to utilities, and you have to grab a utility, and you have to send this to mono. I know it sounds weird. I mean, why would you go and actually buy a plugin like the M1, which is an expansive, atmospheric, great, lush synth, and then run it in mono? Well, if you actually listen to all the previously mentioned playlists, you'll hear that all of the pads are recorded in mono. I mean, they're very much centered in the stereo image, and so there you go. I mean, I don't know what about it is, but it just sounds, you know, authentic to the period. So I'm just gonna slap it on there. And one other thing that I might do is to put a sort of a bit crusher, but not an extreme bit crusher, something like a 12-bit reducer. Let me just go into plugins, and there's these kilohertz. They're great. They're free. And yeah, I'm gonna go up to, let's go to 12, see what it sounds like. That might be a bit too much. Let me just beautiful, I love it. Cool, so we've come this far into the just the melodic harmonic part of things. Now we need to really seriously look at breaks, finally, the moment you all been waiting for. So I'm gonna go into my folder, my breaks samples, and there's basically a handful of breaks that you really should know about jungle, and one is the hot pants break, the other one is the think break, and of course the other one is the M1 break. But lastly, which is my favorite, and I think actually is also the favorite of many producers in this video game era, is Soul Pride break. Cool, so that's actually where we're gonna start. I'm gonna drag this into an audio, and I'm not gonna take the whole thing because it's a bit too long. So I'm gonna sorry, but it sounds good already. So starting point. Cool. So this might be it. Let me just grab here, set 1 here, length of 2, position 1, and let's see what we've got. And so the idea is that we find break that works in a loop, but many times I actually prefer to quantize it slightly like this. And it says this is 112. That's not the original tempo because I just put it on 112 and it doesn't work. So just go back to 162. So when you pitch up and down and the tempo is quite upbeat, what you do is you help the algorithm actually, you know, with the time stretch, and it sounds just a little bit better. So that's what I'm doing right now. See, this one doesn't sound too good because it was stretched to death. So, and that's it. You just have to play it by ear a little bit, and you have to make sure that, for example, this doesn't need to be quantized really, and nor does this. Probably not this either. There you go. Or this. Or this. So basically, I quantize pretty much every little thing, every 16th or something. But I really didn't need to do that, so I'm just fixing it right now, and it should sound much better. And it does. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna crop this. Yeah, cool. So now that we've cropped it, let me just unmute this again and let's see what it sounds like. It's a bit quick. I think we can chill out a bit, like 158. Cool. So now what we can do is, if we don't want to keep the same pattern going, we can actually go and we can slice this to a new MIDI track. I prefer using this method. That's why I actually quantized it to begin with. I create one slice per 1/8 of a note. So since I've already quantized this, it shouldn't be a problem. The slicing preset is just built in, and I preserved the warped timing. I press OK, and it's gonna slice it up all nice and good. I usually go decay and release all the way up, and I turn the loop length down to 0. Cool. So this is kind of the tedious part of the process, because most times when you slice, there's always some sort of weird stuff like this, because it doesn't really go into the transients all that well. For example, right here, what is this? This is nonsense. It is nonsense. It is nonsense. It is nonsense, I do declare.
One eternity later.
And so if we want to have the same pattern now, let me just mute this. yeah, we have it. We should have it. But if we want to do something wacky and weird, and we're definitely gonna do it. This one, for example, doesn't need to be a kick. It can be another snare. This one can have a roll. And to do that, we can turn into your 64s. Actually, we didn't need to do that. Let me just try in 30 seconds first. Actually, I needed to do that, so let me just copy and paste this, and maybe you press B and you go like whoop, like this. And I mean, we haven't got all night, so I'm gonna stop right here, and I'm gonna discuss the next part. And at this point, I would like to point out that if you enjoy the genre that we've been producing today, there is one way you can support me completely for free, and that is by pre-saving my first single, MSN Love, coming out June 9th, 2023 on Spotify under my alias Tomato Breaks. You can click on the link in the description box below to pre-save it, or if you're watching this video after June 9th, there will be a link that actually brings you directly to the song, and you can listen to it and you can put a little heart on it, or maybe you can even save it in one of your playlists. All these things actually really go a long way in the Spotify algorithm apparently, and I would really appreciate your support. It doesn't cost you a single penny. Cool? Cool. So let's get back to it. We can delete this, and the next thing is more drums. And more drums is correct because more drums means usually 909. So the way the 909 is used in Nintendo 64 Jungle is usually as reinforcement for the drums, or at least that's the usage I've heard the most in these kind of compositions. So let me just go and add a 909. I think it should be included in the, yes. And so the components of the 909 that are used the most in this genre are basically the crashes and the ride and the hi-hats as reinforcement, but also sometimes, you know, the kick and the snare. But you know, let's have a little jam and see what happens. And they were usually kind of panned one way or the other as well. So let me just go in here and control it a little bit. There you go. Let me just go. Where's the pan? Where's the pan? Oh, there you go. Pan. Beautiful. Beautiful. There you go. So let me just create, what is it? It's a 4-bar length. So let me just go and create 4 bars of closed hi-hats. And let me just see how it vibes with the rest of the break. Boom. And usually it was something simple like this. So let me just go ahead and record that. I don't particularly like this second ride right here. I mean, I just don't like the sound. Of course, like an absolute idiot that I am, I'm doing some automations because I forgot to unarm the track. So let me just delete automation, and also these rides are just wilding. They need to be put in their place, and also I'm gonna need some sends to be opened up because I wanna send these rides for a ride. Anyway, I'm gonna send them to Reverb. And I'm sending to the normal regular reverb and delays as well, just because I want a bit more extra, space to it. And I guess I might as well try and add some more snares and bass drum. Cool. Another thing that I might want to do right now is actually to put these drums in mono as well, and also put a bit reductor on these drums as well. This will serve two purposes. First of all, it's gonna center the drums. It's gonna make them mono. It's gonna make them a bit more vintage, and it's gonna emulate the kind of Akai samplers that were used back in the days. And actually have another plugin that does exactly that. It's called the SP950, which was actually gifted to me by its creator. So thank you, Wave Tracing, for giving it to me for free. This is the first time actually using it in a video, I think, and it sounds pretty good. It's an emulation of the EMU SP SP1200, I guess. So. Okay, alright, so now that we have a pad, a 909 kit, and a drum break, we can actually start thinking about bass. I mean, it is drum and bass after all, so we need some bass. And let me just go and grab once again our old pal Niels Schneider, because I think before actually starting recording this video I found a really cool bass patch. Let me just see if I can find it again. It's not this, although I mean I've heard, I mean this is probably like Jerry Seinfeld bass, but we probably don't want this exact sound. Let me just see what I've got in ROM card number 1, and this is what I'm talking about. I love this. There are a few different types of basses in Nintendo 64 jungle music. One of them is definitely sort of a emulation of, you know, finger picking or fretless bass, but more generally speaking, an emulation of an electric bass. This type of music also makes extensive use of 808s, but we're not going to talk about them right now. And let me just play around with this. That is way too loud. Cool, I like this. I think this is a good starting point. Even if the chords change, the bass line remains kind of steady, and that gives you that sort of end results of Mario Kart sort of vibes, if that makes sense. I don't know what it is about it, but there's something about, you know, the bass line keeping the same scale and key, I guess, and the chords changing on top of that. That gives me that kind of racing, you know, video game sort of attitude. So I'm going to record this. And this is so out of tune as well, and I guess that's the beauty of working with ROM player emulations. They're not very precise. I'm playing the right notes. It's F and F. It should be a perfect octave, but apparently it's not. But anyway, let me just record this real quick. Cool, and I think I messed up the second half of it, so I'm going to just shorten it like this. And I think that with this particular type of bass, I'm going to record 2 different phrases. One which is kind of open-ended and kind of expansive like this, quite chill, and then maybe I'm going to record something that is a bit more groovy and locked in, and maybe in that section I might actually use, you know, the actual 2 chords that I'm using in the chord progression for the pad. But in order to do that, let me just move a few things around. I'm gonna move this here and this here, and then I'm gonna double this. I'm actually gonna I'm gonna duplicate this. Sorry, I just had dinner, so okay. And maybe on this track I'll add some sort of EQ, or even better, an audio effect. I'm going to go into EQ and filters. I'm going to put an auto filter on, so low pass. And maybe this is the time to actually do something a bit more complex. something like that. And maybe here, instead of using the same sound but with the filter, maybe you'll just, find a different sound. And let me just go to the browser and see if I can. And in order to give it a bit of movement, I'll use a completely free plugin, again from Kilohertz, which I find here, and it is a, what is it, how's it called, it's like a trance gate or something. Yeah, there we go, very good. Cool. So at this point we have pads, we have drums, we have another sort of paddy sound, although it's gated, and we have a bass, and I'm absolutely sweating like a pig, so let me just, very well. Okay, so I think that now we can start thinking about some leads, and I'm gonna open up a MIDI track, and we're gonna go into plugins once again. And let's revisit Mr. Neil Schneider's K1V once again. Oh yeah, very good. And the one problem about this plugin is that it's not really divided in leads, lead sounds and bell sounds and pad sounds. It's all kind of like, each bank has, different sounds with which you can make a song. So you have to just really dig deep. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, I don't know, it's kind of cheesy, but I love it. Let me just see trumpet. Yeah, that's cool. Maybe in the interest of keeping this as much free plugin based as possible, I might just, use just the K1V here. Let me just see what the flute sounds like in context. Well, first of all, it's bloody loud, and I'm gonna have to turn it down, like so. But to preview this, I'm going to use this particular. I mean, I love this. I really do. I'm gonna record this. It's very cheesy. It's very simple. I'm not a very good keyboardist, but I think it just works, doesn't it? again, I'm gonna insert another MIDI track. And once again, I'm gonna go into Neil's sounds. I'm gonna choose Bellary this time. It's very loud. I mean, I said I'm gonna choose Bellary, but there might be some even cooler, bell sounds right here, hiding somewhere like this. Wow. Fantastic. Absolutely amazing. I mean, it's bells and airy vocals, so I mean, it's perfect. Let me just see what it sounds like in context. Cool. I like the way this is going. Let me just add a MIDI track. And I think at this point it's time to add some rave stabs, which I mean, to me it sounded a bit weird the way it was named and categorized, but I kind of think it makes sense now. And shout out to the great team Kant on YouTube, because the guy just breaks down every single possible sound from the golden era of jungle and drum and bass, and this is how he categorizes rave stabs. It's basically a collection of mostly sample based sounds, sometimes of an orchestral fashion, so a full sample, ranging from low basses, from timpanis or bass or something, and going up to horns. So it's a full orchestra that's been sampled, and then it's been played chromatically, pitched up and down. And sometimes though, rave stabs can actually be samples of other synths, or even samples from vocals. What qualifies them as stabs, I guess, is that they're very short in nature, and they're usually played chromatically, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't fuck it up, but it's basically what it is. The good thing about rave stabs, the state of rave stabs in 2023, is that there is not only one great free plugin, but two great free plugins that you can use. And the first one, of course, I'm talking about Waverzor's Rave Generator 2, which is insane, because this one actually is a collection of all the major stabs ever used in drum and bass and garage and two-step and all that UK sort of scene. You have different samples, and you can load them together. I mean, you realize what this is already, so it's fucking fantastic. I love this. Now I would like to find some stabs that actually go well with my song. But before we do that, I need to talk about the second stab generator that I found, which is completely free once again, and it's from Meatbeats, who actually make a lot of really cool free plugins like these four. These I use pretty much all the time, but the one we're talking about is Orbits, which is basically, it's an emulation of the, I don't remember what it is from. I'm gonna put it in the screen somewhere for you to find out. But basically, this is not just a stab generator. It's got actually some great bass sounds. I mean, you can do it all, including hits, which are basically stabs. Now the point is, we need to find a stab whose original sample kind of makes sense harmonically with the rest of the song. I'm gonna go for a bit of digging. I mean, you guys recognize this one, don't you? Awesome. Let me just go back to Rave Generator, because I think we might be able to find some cool stuff here. What? What is that? It's a duck. I don't get it. But yeah, it's awesome. I like this. I don't know, I think it's very dumb, very, very dumb, but I kind of like how it complements the lead synth. That might be a bit on the nose, but I don't care. It's fun. It's games, it's Nintendo 64 games, it's childish, and yeah, I'm just having a bit of a laugh right now. So, the one thing about stabs is that they tend to be used as, you know, the primary focus of attention of the song, so they don't really fit into fully established, you know, chord progression, because they are so self-centered harmonically in nature. Does it make sense? They have many notes within them, so, and once you start playing them chromatically, they clash with whatever like chord progression you already have established. So I guess I just wanted to show you these two incredibly good free plugins with all the cool sounds from the 90s, and we did find a kind of effects sort of, you know, it's not a stab, but you know, you get what I mean. So I guess everything is not lost, and I still managed to show you something cool. But I think right now we're kind of done with all the, you know, all the sounds. I mean, I can probably find some more ear candy, but I can only do that after I actually establish an arrangement first. And I have sort of a rough arrangement in mind, which is basically this. Well, let me just double this and delete this, and it's gonna go a bit like this. And at this point I would like to have a build up, like a drop with maybe some, you know, snare rolls and something like that, and I want it to crescendo, and then I want it to go into this. And then after a few loops I would like to put the bass in. And after a few loops of this, I would like to have maybe And then finally I have this section. I mean, this is a very poor version of what I actually want to achieve, but I think the actual arrangement part is a bit tricky and it's a bit long and it requires lots of trial and error. And this is something that, you know, a lot of YouTube videos kind of don't show you. Typically people would, you know, either pre-think an arrangement or and you know, just do the right thing at the right time and kind of build it, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, they're not faking it, they just did the homework beforehand and presented it to you in a very compelling way. I am no such a great artist of editing and preparation, so I actually haven't prepared an arrangement for this. All of this is basically from scratch, and at this point, if I continue with the arrangement, it's going to be very boring, so I'm probably gonna like build an arrangement in the arrange window, and through the magic of editing I'll be transported right here where I actually have an arrangement all sorted out. Alright, that's it. I hope you found this video useful or fun or both, and if you like that, there's some more videos that you can go check out. Please remember to like and subscribe. Please remember to buy my sample pack on bigomami.com. But if you don't want to spend any money, just go click the link in the description box below for my single called MSN Love on Spotify, which you can either pre-save or listen to and save and blah 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 blah. And I'll see you next time, and I love you guys.